On the surface, GloRilla comes across like the friend who speaks first and lets the consequences sprint after her. Her Memphis drawl rolling out rough-edged and warm, her honesty snapping into the room without warning, startling in its refusal to soften itself for anyone, and her laugh bursting out wide and unruly. The kind born in real kitchens and crowded porches, untouched by media training or self-conscious polish. A sound that makes you believe she has never tried to be anything other than exactly what she appears to be. Let's turn the lens around, because the version of GloRilla most people think they know, loud, loose, effortlessly unfiltered, disappears the moment you step behind the life she lived before anyone cared who she was. Long before stages and cameras, she was hauling boxes through 12-hour shifts at Nike and FedEx, doing the kind of work that leaves your muscles humming long after the shift is over. She saved what she could, slept when her body forced her to, and walked into the studio even when exhaustion made the world tilt. A single missed session felt more dangerous than a night without rest. That rhythm grind, collapse, repeat was not chaos. It was her first structure, the one that taught her consistency long before music demanded it. And while the internet later labeled her raw talent, she was recording drafts on her phone, stitching songs together on Facebook, and pushing through a music ecosystem designed to skim past voices like hers. Her voice, deep, smoky, unmistakable, wasn't always welcomed. The tone that later became her signature arrived too heavy for some listeners, too sharp for certain producers. But instead of sanding down the edges, she leaned into them. She refused to lift her register or sweeten her delivery. She stayed rooted in the sound she grew up with in Memphis, a voice weathered by her environment, shaped by her neighborhood, and steeped in the cadence of people who don't filter themselves to make others comfortable. That choice wasn't rebellion, it was identity. And that identity came from a place deeper than the industry's timelines or trends. GloRilla's ties to her community run through her work like a spine. She carries her Memphis accent without apology, keeps childhood friends in her orbit, and speaks with the tone of someone who never expected her city to give her anything, but honors it anyway. Her humor, her straightforward honesty, her fearlessness all come from that same soil. The persona people call wild or carefree is, in reality, a distilled version of where she comes from. Kitchens loud enough to drown out doubt, porches where everyone learns to speak loudly, and a world where confidence isn't optional, it's survival. This is where her real tension begins. To the outside world, she looks spontaneous, a woman who doesn't think before she speaks. But carefree becomes a weight when people expect it from you. Many artists buckle under that kind of pressure. She didn't. Beneath the laugh sits calculation. Beneath the energy is ritual. Beneath the persona is someone who has lived most of her life without a safety net and learned to hold her balance without one. Most people project chaos because they're overwhelmed. She projects it because she's in control. And that contradiction, the playful surface stretched over an intensely disciplined foundation, is the quiet force behind her rise. It's also the battlefield where her real fight happens. Every artist who lives between two selves eventually feels the strain, the public version that demands vulnerability and the private version built on control. The space between them creates momentum, but it also creates cost. This is the line where careers falter or sharpen. GloRilla isn't wrestling the industry. She's wrestling the expectations built around her authenticity. Navigating that requires a level of self-awareness most artists never reach, especially this early in their careers. Her rise wasn't loud, it only looked loud. The truth is steadier, shaped by routines that would break a less disciplined artist, by a vocal identity she refused to dilute, and by loyalty to a community that formed her long before fame ever called her name. She didn't stumble into success. She built it, shift after shift, song after song, refusal after refusal, with the kind of endurance that makes underestimation a useful tool rather than a wound. And now the question hanging over her story isn't about fame at all. It's about balance. How long can someone live between persona and discipline before one version demands a price from the other? Because the war she's fighting isn't public. It's personal. And it's the part of her story almost no one ever sees.